Naruto was very quick to aid every front of each battlefield on the war, taking on the likes of the 3rd Raikage, Tsuchikage, the 6th Rinnegan Amp Jinchuriki, and the revived Edo Nagato. So what if the more absent Sasuke was swapped into Naruto's place to determine just how the war arc would fare against the lone Uchiha? And that's exactly what me and my most special guest yet will be discussing today. So do you want to go and introduce yourself and a bit of the structure?
Yeah, I don't super know how to introduce myself. I think saying, hey, it's 6 is kind of cringe, but that is me. I am 6. But the structure of the video is going to be virtually just broken up into 4 different fights. We're going to do Sasuke versus the 4th Raikage, sort of like a rematch. Sasuke versus the 3rd Raikage, his dad, obviously. Sasuke versus Nagato, and Sasuke versus the Jinchuriki. It doesn't really seem right to fit Itachi in here. Since Itachi and Sasuke probably just wouldn't fight each other. But Nagato and Jinchuriki, yeah. Itachi also didn't really fight Naruto either, so. But yeah, that's pretty much the structure.
Yeah. Now, entering into our first match with the 4th Raikage, I'd like to quickly discuss Sasuke in a brief section about his powers, seeing as, well, believe it or not, Sasuke should actually be stronger than Naruto going into this, as you'll note that Sasuke, through his entire fight with Kabuto, is portrayed as highly relative to his elder brother Itachi in regards to combative stats, and while sure, Itachi is faster than Sasuke, it's never painted to be to a degree where Sasuke isn't relative to him, or as like he can certainly keep up in instances like whenever they attempt to reaccount their boar attack strategy from childhood. The two also utilize Amaterasu at equal times on Kabuto's spiral web. They react to the following bone and web attacks equally, and not to mention that Sasuke and Itachi move equally within each other's genjutsu, being the Tsukiyomi and base EMS respectively, which follows with how, upon restoring his vision, the 4th databook notes how Sasuke had gained ninjutsu and ocular techniques that surpassed those of his older brother, fitting also well with how Itachi in the 3rd databook has the Susanoo and spirit weapons, making him regarded as one who possesses the most powerful ocular ability, where now Sasuke's Amaterasu is called the greatest offensive ocular ability after he used it to halt Kabuto and his movement to then save his brother, who was kind of bullied by the inorganic reanimation. The fire utilized is actually so hot that it forcefully deactivates the inorganic reanimation cave transformation, which is incredibly impressive, as it also is made known to us, the reader, that neither Sasuke nor Itachi can go all out in this battle, hence to why Itachi's Totsuka blade was never really shown whatsoever, like why the Inton / Amaterasu was barely shown at all, and was only really ever utilized defensively. This same Itachi was capable of parrying off KCM1 Naruto in a flying taijutsu scuffle, where he also dodges Killer Beast's surprise attack from behind the back, doing 3 backflips before B could even finish the attack, where Itachi then goes on to use his Phoenix Flower Jutsu and basic Genjutsu to kind of just school B, before he would then parry off over 10 different strikes from the 8 sword style, all whilst in his 3 Tomoe state. That same Sasuke was protecting that 3 Tomoe Itachi throughout the fight, where he would then be much more relative to an MS Itachi who could intercept Nagato to save Naruto and B. So yeah, Sasuke is definitely stronger than Naruto going into these fights. And do you want to go ahead and speak on Sasuke, or just jump straight into the 4th Raikage?
No, I really don't have anything else to say about Sasuke. I mean, obviously, within this fight, he has far more Susanoo stages than he did the first time he fought the Raikage, and the Raikage doesn't have the same number of arms that he did whenever he fought Sasuke for the first time. On top of Sasuke just getting much stronger. Sasuke's strength increases are said to be in relation to his chakra getting colder, where every time his chakra grows colder, he either unlocks a new stage of Susanoo, or like Obito says, his rage grows in power, and then his body simply adapts to that power, letting him draw out more of his Susanoo and just more of his Sharingan powers in general, since the Sharingan is stated to amp the user whenever they get a greater amount of hatred. So when talking about Sasuke versus the Raikage, obviously we have a first fight to sort of compare this to and see how it would go. Whenever Sasuke pulled out his MS for the first time, just the base MS and his small Susanoo, the Raikage responded by using his maximum The Raikage responded using his maximum lightning armor and trying to blitz Sasuke, where this same thing probably wouldn't work on Sasuke again, not only because the Raikage simply can't get through the armor this time since Sasuke's unlocked far more stages than the first time the Raikage broke through it, but Sasuke likely being able to react to the Raikage now due to just simply scaling above him, like what Virhtue mentioned earlier. Is there anything that you have to say about this matchup?
I mean, nah, I think you covered it well with the Susanoo and him having to break through it and whatever. Like, even then, whenever A does break through the Susanoo in the summit, Sasuke actually does get chopped in the neck. There is a connection to his skin, and there is just this big fat bruise, but again, he still kind of tanks it. And you mentioned that he doesn't have an arm now that he previously had, and well, who took that arm? So yeah, if you want to know more about the 4th Raikage fight with Sasuke, I do have a video up on that detailing why Sasuke did much better than you think, and in my opinion, probably won that fight pretty handily. But I guess after that, we could just move straight into the 3rd Raikage. And to be honest, Sasuke in the summit can scale above the 4th Raikage, as we've already detailed. And then this Raikage would probably be above B, who's just above Gyuki as a whole, who's kind of just equal to the 3rd, as they stalemated many times back in his day, with him just kind of just falling flat, and he ends up piercing himself, which is where we get that. But even though his durability is just constantly touted to be insane, right? The Rasengan does crack his arm. So it goes through the cloak and it actually cracks his arm. So that's pretty interesting, as then you'd also probably be able to make a case that the Enton or Amaterasu could also then do something to this Raikage, or at least do way better than even it did against the 4th, if you do take the presumption that the 4th is greater than the 3rd, which both I and 6 do. So yeah, even then, the 3rd Raikage could also just have a Genjutsu GG, like Sasuke could literally just stun him with this base EMS Genjutsu that could even be relative to a a Tsukiyomi from Itachi, which is pretty insane, as even though you've alluded to the difference between Kage Summit Sasuke and this one here, the one there was stated to have Genjutsu that's a night and day difference, inferior to Itachi's. Now they're kind of equals, so it does show how much growth he's had. But now this Sasuke has the full Susanoo and can fire out these like whiffs of Enton and stuff like that. He has his Susanoo arrow that's even much faster than himself that he can form, so there's a lot he can do against the 3rd Raikage. Do you want to go ahead and touch on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, the 3rd Raikage in general is just much less impressive than the 4th Raikage, so he really needs less of a conversation as a result. I mean, that's really all I had to say about it.
No, I would like to also quickly point out that the Hell Stab piercing through the Susanoo is quite unlikely and simply shouldn't be justified through Kabuto's water style successfully catching Sasuke in his Susanoo, where many people try to argue that he shattered it, completely busted it, but this kind of just ignores the fact that the Susanoo is hollow and is open from the bottom, as displayed against Danzo in his giant Baku summon. But anyway, I digress. We can move into probably the most interesting match and the one you guys want to hear, Nagato. So, yeah, now following up with Edo Nagato, we now have a combatant who is considered by the fandom to be stronger than Edo Itachi. However, both me and Six would like to apply some skepticism to that claim and analyze why Sasuke, being highly relative to a later MS Itachi, is critical to his battle with this Nagato. Now, for a preface, yes, it will be Nagato with his legs and the full version of the cloak that Killer Bee gave him, because otherwise, well, dude kind of just can't walk and is basically a corpse. However, the animal summons will be quickly dismissed as, Itachi instantly ignited the replicating dog, blitzing and one-shotting it with the Amaterasu in a seemingly faster time frame than the Rasen Shuriken and what it could do, although I digress, whatever. Sasuke pulling this strategy also should prompt Nagato to then proceed in this the same as he did against Itachi, where the other animals could kind of just that he would rely on being like the chameleon, which he used to completely restrain Naruto whilst also trying to suck his soul out, pause, and then absorbing the following Rasengan. But B, then learning from his mistake against 3-Tomo Itachi, charges in with like a Raiton enhanced blade from above, but the animal perception was actually completely skewed and kind of allowed for him to just or I guess for Itachi to then just completely stop and block them both, and he ends up ripping off the chameleon's tongue and the Ashura Path arm from Nagato with his Susanoo hand, which you could argue even blitzed that Nagato, but some people would like to argue that he's off guard. But what do you usually say for that? Would you say that he was off guard? Do you think Itachi even blitzed Nagato? Where do you stand on these relations between each other?
My normal argument against it is just that Itachi cuts off the vision for the summons and then follows up with an attack on Nagato at the same time. And we know that he couldn't have started his attack before he cut the vision off for the summons, because if he did, well, then the summons would have seen him, right? So the whole point is that the vision was cut off, and then Kabuto or Nagato, whatever you want to say, didn't do anything about that, or they didn't look around or anything before Itachi came in and just cut his arm off. And obviously they would know that the vision was cut off because they would see the kunai flying into the eyes of the summons, and then, you know, it just not being there, going black, or however you want to say. So yeah, the general argument there is just that while Itachi doesn't run directly in front of Nagato and punch him directly in the face, he does something similar when he takes out the eyes of the summons and then follows up with an attack before Nagato can do anything. And keep in mind, Nagato, while he might not be able to maybe jump away or something like that, he does have Shinra Tensei, which can literally just push anything around him away. So it's not as if you can just say that you know, he was completely helpless here just because Itachi cut the eyes off from his summons. And keep in mind, the summons are also extremely close to Nagato. They're like at max, and again, I'm just throwing out a number here, but at max like 20 feet away. The King of Hell is behind him, and the chameleon is like a few feet in front of him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even the chameleon's tongue is just barely extended like a couple feet away from Nagato if you just kind of eyeball it. So the chameleon's very close, basically right next to Nagato. But even then, if you take this, and this hand swipe literally makes Nagato think he needs the Chubaku Tensei. So think about how late it took him to use it against Naruto, and now this one's like, yep, screw it, we're going straight to Chubaku, and that's instantly what he does. But what does Itachi do? He instantly finds a way to counter it. Even with his Susanoo, which he just continually evolves through completely. So he goes from like a skeletal Susanoo all the way up to basically a V3 Susanoo to then chuck the Yasuke beads at the Chubaku Tensei while they're being pulled in by the gravity. So even then, you say that, okay, this MS Itachi is relative to Sasuke, then Sasuke should also be able to develop the Susanoo at similar speeds, even in comparison to things like the Chubaku Tensei. But even then, Itachi was always forced to play a more close game than what Sasuke could play here. He could utilize techniques like the Susanoo era, which are generally faster than himself by quite a bit, seeing as Danzo was able to react to Sasuke on low ends, but was completely blitzed by the Susanoo arrow and things like this. And Kabuto only really does dodge the Susanoo arrow from what we know based on his sensory, which is highlighted and implied to be the key factor in that scene when he does manage to dodge it. So even then, I think the Susanoo arrow is something that could definitely put up a bad problem for Nagato in terms of what he's going to have to deal with in this fight. But for that, I would say that I definitely think Sasuke should win. Even then, if you consider how bad Itachi burned Nagato to a literal chicken nugget, if you just think about that, the Inton is a greater version of that. Its shape can be manipulated and things like this. So Sasuke should be able to deal greater damage and win the fight easier through a Matarasu than what Itachi could due to him having Inton. So I would definitely say that he should beat this Nagato pretty handily. What would you say? Would you say so? You'd agree?
Yeah. I obviously think he's beating Nagato just because, same thing with Itachi. I think Itachi's beating Nagato. I think Sasuke is doing the same thing. Sasuke's win con, though, obviously, Nagato is Edo Tensei. It's not like he can just burn him to death. Nagato also has the potential to, at some point, just absorb the Amaterasu or push it off like he did whenever he was fighting Itachi. But Sasuke does have Genjutsu at the highest level of the Sharingan, just even with his base 3 Tomo Sharingan back at the Fire Kage Summit. And now, while it did say the Genjutsu was not at the level of Tsukuyomi back at the summit, it could be at the level of Tsukuyomi now, especially with his EMS on, considering Itachi uses Tsukuyomi to break Sasuke out of Kabuto's Flute Genjutsu, and Sasuke uses his EMS Sharingan to break Itachi out doing the exact same thing. So it is possible that Sasuke does have this Tsukuyomi tier of genjutsu, and this could be consistent due to the fact that Sasuke does now have Itachi's eyes with his EMS instead. So with him having this like insane tier of genjutsu, and Nagato not having the best genjutsu resistance, as we saw whenever Frog Song was used on him, he could potentially just get Nagato with the genjutsu instead of having to, just beat him down, since, like I said, he is an Edo Tensei that it can just infinitely regenerate. The argument against that would obviously be something along the lines of, oh, Rinnegan. We know the Rinnegan doesn't have all the benefits of the Sharingan. So specifically saying it has the genjutsu resistance is a claim that can't really be proven. We know that Sasuke's Rinnegan has genjutsu resistance, but Sasuke's Rinnegan also has his Mangekyo Sharingan powers. I mean, we've seen him use a Matarasu out of it. We've seen him amplify his Susanoo with it, so we know that. And we know the Rinnegan doesn't have all of the Sharingan's properties, because not only does Madara take his Rinnegan back down to the EMS to cast Sharingan Genjutsu on the Raikage, Hidari in Boruto claims that he can't use the Chidori properly because he has the Rinnegan and not the Sharingan like Sarada does.
Yeah, even then, I completely agree with you. I'm also somebody who generally stands on the interpretation that the Rinnegan doesn't block Genjutsu, because I know that is a take, but even then, I know people will try to substantiate White Mask Obito and things like that being put into a Genjutsu too, which could work as well, but it's only one eye. So you can take that back what you will, but I generally don't think there's enough to substantiate the Rinnegan being able to completely counter Sharingan Genjutsu, at least on the level of Sasuke, who basically has the peak of Genjutsu, sitting alongside Tsukuyomi, which is feared as the most powerful Genjutsu. Even if you think Frog Song has a greater potency, it doesn't really matter, as even then the Tsukuyomi should still at least be at the peak of the world at that time, and then Sasuke's would then kind of translate up to that as well. So I also think Genjutsu should be a pretty solid match here. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and move on to the Jinchuriki, which I'll let you open up with.
So the Jinchuriki are quite weird, just because whenever we see the Jinchuriki, they're obviously all amplified, and I think they're all amplified because they have their own Sharingan. Now, I know it's a bit debatable whether or not the Sharingan is actually theirs or not, but I do actually think the Sharingan does belong to them, and I'll explain why. The ongoing interpretation would just be that the Rinnegan rods cast the eyes of the user into their pads. So whether that's a Sharingan or whether that's a Rinnegan, it would just cast the eyes. But that doesn't seem to make sense to me. The Rinnegan rods are for the Rinnegan. So it makes sense that they would cast the Rinnegan's projection, because the Rinnegan is what gets the shared field of view. However, the Sharingan does not get that same shared field of view. There are no Sharingan rods, so that, just like I said, doesn't make sense to me. Also, at the end of chapter 544, Obito says he has 6 new pains, all Jinchuriki, but this time he added a little something. He says he has 6 new pains, so we know he didn't add rods because the rods are necessary for pains. He says they're all Jinchuriki, so we know that that's not what he added, because if not, then he just wouldn't have said that. So what could he have added? Well, right after he says that, we get a shot at all of their eyes, and we see they all have Sharingan. How would Obito get so many Sharingan? Obviously, we know he has that wall full of Sharingan. So the Jinchuriki all do have their own Sharingan, so they should be amplified in the war.
Yeah, no, I kind of understand that interpretation too. I've usually just gone with the typical one, but I've never really gave too much thought into it, as I've always just gone with they have to kind of be amped either way compared to when they were alive, considering that it's considered to be like a no effort capture by the editorial statements for Kakuzu and Hidan against Yugito, and her combo attack's able to hit KCM1, so obviously something's not translating, because Kakuzu's definitely not KCM1 level, which is obvious, right? But I do think they are pretty strong, at least in how they can combo attack. So they combo attack similar to the Pains, where they kind of go in rapid succession, back to back, but they will all jump at the same time if they need to. But for example, they all have very interesting abilities. So Yagra, he has the mirror, things like this. But their V2 states are what really need to be discussed. And here, one thing I quickly like to note for Sasuke is that Itachi in the anime uses Amaterasu to one-shot Yagura out of his V2 cloak because he notices that his fireball doesn't work. So he's like, alright, Amaterasu, instantly drops him and basically leaves him for dead. But then he walks away for no reason. But anyway, Sasuke could basically do this as he, again, has the Inton to then do this. So I think even then, I think with the Susanoo, I don't know what they could do to get around the Susanoo, considering, again, at least with B, they're able to counter the Jinchuriki to some degree and whatnot. But I think Sasuke here is a lot stronger than both B and Naruto, even as a unit, I would argue. So Sasuke with the Susanoo, having all of his techniques and whatnot, should still be able to come out with a win on top of the Jinchuriki. Do you want to touch on the Jinchuriki a little bit more?
So to go over the Jinchuriki and kind of how they compare physically, I don't really think that the Jinchuriki are all that impressive physically. Han is obviously one that you're just going to have to admit that he is impressive whenever he uses boil release, because he can even kick the boil release up a notch and just send B and KCM Naruto flying through the forest, and even seemingly force B into his Biju transformation and to just get rid of the forest in general. So Han is definitely up there when it comes to using boil release, but boil release is literally stated to give you unrivaled physical strength, so it's not too much of an anti-feat for Han to have that sort of power. Whenever they go V2, B does say, or I'm sorry, not B, Yuki does say whenever the Edo Jinchuriki all go V2 that he didn't know they could go Biju mode, and since they now know that they could do that, Naruto and B should probably retreat. Showing the Jinchuriki are somewhat of a threat if they can all go into that Biju mode where they can shoot Biju bombs and whatnot. And then obviously later we find out they can go full transformation, but Obito does start losing control of them a little bit whenever they go that far. So the Jinchuriki aren't all too impressive in their base forms, and then when they get up to V2, obviously you can argue, they're super strong, and then but Sasuke should be able to genjutsu all of them. He shouldn't have a problem putting any of the tail beasts in the Jinchuriki under his control. But did you want to touch on if Obito was there? Because I don't think we're really considering Obito in this part of the matchup.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even then, one thing I thought about was in the anime Utakata, the Six Tails, whenever he does fight Pain, he has a V2 state, but he does have this blue V2 state also, where he could slip through the chameleon's tongue and he blitzes and basically one-shots two paths, which is kind of crazy. But the thing is, that's anime filler, so we're not going to be taking that interpretation. So just in case you guys are aware of that scene and are questioning, well, you've mentioned this before, but why are you not talking about it? That's why we're just taking just manga right now. But yeah, we can go ahead and touch on Obito, and I think to only make that fair, we should probably quickly just address that we're going to need a later Sasuke. So as my buddy TG has aligned, there's a couple different forms of Sasuke. There's an unmastered one that fought from the Itachi battle against Kabuto, and then there's an acclimated one that fought up until he gets chakra from Naruto, and then that would be the mastered one. We could use the acclimated one going into the mastered one where he does fight alongside Biju Sage mode, because obviously that might be a bit overkill if we give that form, but this acclimated one that's able to fight alongside Tobirama, alongside KCM Minato, is able to wrap his Susanoo hand around Naruto in the time frame that dazed Minato is reaching his arm to the orb that was placed on his right shoulder by Jubito, where Tobirama then uses body flicker to get in. So I wouldn't say even then that Tobirama is faster than Sasuke's Susanoo hand, because again, body flicker would be a speed-based technique, not just some raw movement speed without it, and even then his regular combat speed might not be that fast anyway. So even then, this Sasuke looks good going into a battle with KCM 1.5, where he's able to acclimate to the battle better, where Naruto can't keep up. He's like, what's going on, when Jubito first comes out, and Sasuke is able to remain calm. He even tells Naruto to just go all out and he'll match his power, implying that he would be a slight superior to this KCM 1.5 Naruto. Now, one thing to say is, while Obito certainly is relative to a KCM 2 Naruto, it might be on a lower end, as you'll see, whenever Naruto uses his enlarged chakra fist, Obito does react to it by changing his arm position, although he doesn't really evade it. And same for whenever the bomb is fired, he doesn't fully evade the bomb. He can't fully evade it. Same when Naruto uses a chakra hand to fully swipe down, he can't fully evade it. So he's somewhere close to this KCM2 level, and you could potentially say maybe he's more equal-ish, you know, because he's able to wrap the wood style around, or maybe Naruto is off guard. There's a couple different interpretations, but him being a KCM2 level fighter is certain, and that's the point here for Obito. But for Sasuke, he's able to fight alongside this Naruto, who in chapter 628 was able to react to both Madara and Obito's fire style at the exact same time, whilst Obito would then use a surprise attack out of Kamui from behind the back, and since Kakashi warns Naruto, he's able to fully evade that attack where they move at relative speed. So you could still assert that maybe this Naruto, because you could say this is KCM 1.5 as his cloak is flared up on the collar, so maybe it's KCM 1.5 here, and maybe this KCM 1.5 Naruto could still be comparable to this Sasuke, or maybe Sasuke is slightly weaker than Obito, but he can still put up a fight. What do you think for this match?
I mean, you can make some arguments for Madarasu or whatever. I hate to be a genjutsu merchant because I've been bringing it up throughout the entire video, but Obito actually has shown 0 genjutsu resistance feats throughout the entire series. You can make assumptions on how good you think Obito's genjutsu resistance is. Fact of the matter is, he has not one genjutsu resistance feat to say that he could just greatly resist any genjutsu that comes his way. And that's just 100% fact. Like I said, you can assume all you want. You can say, oh, well, it doesn't make any sense. Why? You know, it doesn't happen. So
I agree.
But I think you pretty much covered it well in general. Just the Itachi. I'm sorry. Fuck. I think you covered it well in general. The whole Sasuke and Obito matchup. Like I said, the only thing I would add in is probably just the genjutsu.
Yeah, no, I agree. And now, while coming to a decisive winner on that matchup can be a little bit tricky due to the outlined arguments, I would lean towards Obito having a slight favor, just him scaling to certainly at least a bit more concretely to a higher form of Naruto compared to maybe a reach of a KCM 1.5 that Sasuke could scale to. Now, while sure, Sasuke could acclimate throughout the battle as he does alongside the Hokage and Naruto to then acclimate to those higher levels where he then evolves legs on his Susanoo and things like this. I would certainly still like to argue that Obito's arsenal is still a lot more developed than it was in Orange Mask, or at least it's a lot more displayed, as he has all the abilities from Madara's cave, like all of his tools and things like this, the Uchiha Reflection Blade, the big rods he shoots out of his Kamui to try to hit KCM2, the large shuriken he fires out, and he does utilize these projectiles as serious attacks that he thinks will work on KCM2 Naruto, despite seeing his speed. So even then, one thing I think that's interesting is maybe Obito's arsenal does still have enough to try to overwhelm Sasuke. Maybe you can get into like a fire style clash, but since Obito again has slightly higher showings, I would say that his bomb blast dance or whatever should do better than Sasuke's fireball if they were to clash in an actual fight. So I'd say that Obito should win, although I do think the assertions for Sasuke can be made. But yeah, that's the video. Make sure you guys do tell me what you guys thought. Do you guys think I am absolutely stupid and need a correction here, or you maybe think 6 is stupid? Either way, let us know in the comment section below. I enjoy reading your guys' comments, but please substantiate why. And yeah, go check out 6. He makes great videos. Yeah, and you can definitely learn something from his channel, so go check out him. And big thanks for him to come on this video, and go check out the video we did on his channel. But yeah, more importantly, God bless you all. Love you guys.